Welcome to Geer Talk.
Talking Gear.
Thanks for joining us. Episode number 2. Hey, Brandon.
Hey, Ross.
Brandon, I hear you.
I kind of see you.
Things are a little different today. I have no dog on my couch. I very much miss Roscoe. How is Roscoe, Brandon?
Roscoe's doing good today.
Good. Is he awake?
He is. He's excited for our daily of topics, yeah?
Well, before we dive into the slate of topics, some congratulations are in order. Not everyone might know this, but Brandon, our very own Brandon Oberchuk, is an official member of the Lakers organization. Brandon, congratulations on your 17th NBA title. How do you feel?
I feel amazing. I'm very proud of my Lakers and the organization as a whole, and all of you out there that are not Lakers fans, ha ha ha.
To all of our Celtics fans, don't get Brandon started.
No.
Please don't comment regarding Celtics.
We're going to have a couple special guests today, both from the Shure Pro side to discuss Twinplex and DuraPlex.
DuraPlex, it's waterproof. Justin? See? We're not kidding around.
Our guest is going to be Jenn Shabu, and our friend Sam Bisak are going to take some time with us to discuss these particular products in a little bit of detail.
Justin, can we get a quick look in at Sam? Is he in the green room? Is he in the VIP lounge? There he is. And how about Jenn? Jenn's joining us from the Bay Area. Hi, Jenn.
On our headset, I like it.
We're very excited to talk to Jenn and Sam. First, before we get to our microphone discussion, we want to do a little bit of a recap on some of our wireless equipment. Brandon, why don't you tell us a little bit about our own production workflow here? What do we got going on? How does it pertain to what we're talking about today?
Well, we've separated ourselves to both enhance social distancing and to take advantage of lots and lots of wireless product. We're primarily using Axient Digital today as our means of communicating with one another or getting the broadcast audio out, and then we are using P10 or P10T to transmit to our P10R Plus so that we can all have an IFB and hear each other as we discuss back and forth in our 3 different locations here in the Audio Gear main studios.
So the P10 and the P10R Plus are part of the PSM 1000 family of products. You musicians out there might have used these in an in-ear monitoring context. We're using them today for IFB. Same basic principle applies. As you can see, we've got a diversity system on the receiver. So we do have 2 antennas. We've got great RF distance, great interference rejection, really, really good system here. And as we're going to talk about a little later, able to be coordinated and controlled from wireless workbench.
P10 is still best in class when it comes to professional in-ear monitoring, for sure.
Absolutely. Before we talk a little bit more about the hardware, because I know Brandon's going to touch on some transmitters, we want to introduce a new segment today. We're calling "What Emails Have You Archived Lately?"
What almost looked like it was worth looking at.
Well, what did you look at? But let's be honest, the archive, and then you got 17,000 other emails. We're here to recap all of that important communication you received recently from your Shure team. Brandon's going to show us a brand new Axient digital transmitter. There it is. What is that, Brandon?
This is the AD3. It is a plug-on that you may want to take any regular microphone out in the world and turn it into a mobile wireless dynamite.
Yeah, and what's that microphone? We got some Shure shotgun mics in the house.
This is the VP89 with the large tube on to give us the maximum amount of reach distance or phase interference required to give us reach distance. And it's this nice flexi hand holder here so that you don't get any vibration noise. Oh, you can't see it over there. There you go.
Very cool. So we're still adding to the Axient digital transmitter lineup. We do have some new transmitters that can sync to the Axient digital system, though they're not Shure transmitters. So we've got a partnership we are announcing, well, has been announced, but we are reinforcing, with Q5X. Brandon, what do you got over there?
I'm holding a transmitter and a little control station. The hardware of the transmitter is very unique or different from the rest of the AD line, and we should go into this in its own topic to be able to discuss how this functions. But the important part is that it will sync and pair on a single frequency with Axient digital receivers. So now when you've got talent in the field that you just know the same drunk guy is going to fall into the pool on a reality TV show, or you have somebody that needs to do some filming maybe on the deck of a boat and they're going to be getting hit with waves constantly, anything like that where you may be, submerged in water. You look into a pack like this to be able to meet the need, but there's never really been a robust high-end receiver to collect this information. And this partnership is going to allow the Shure Axient Digital line to work in conjunction with these units all over the globe.
So we're really just at the outset of that relationship. We're very happy that we can now transmit from the Aqua mic, all of the different sports applications, reality TV, lots of different transmitter form factors that can now sync to the Axient Digital receivers. So we've already referenced it a few times, but let's talk in some detail about Axient Digital as a family of products. And let's start in relation to its predecessor, the very well-known, very widely used UHF-R system. UHF-R being analog, Axient Digital being, well, it's in the name, digital. Brandon, what are some other quick compare and contrasts?
Sure. So Axient Digital really came in to replace two products. It came in to replace UHF-R, which was the world-leading ice cream cone on a stick. Every major concert you've ever been to has got UHF-R on it somewhere, whether it's guitars or vocals or bass. You name it. The analog spectrum just got a little too crowded and a little too unusable, and so we've made the jump into full digital. And UHF-R is no longer manufactured. It's out there and being used in some countries around the world, but here in the U.S., if you don't go digital, you're probably not going to have a very successful show. This AD receiver was designed to replace that initial UHF-R, single channel, single transmit, no frequency diversity problem, and it was also brought in to solve what was at the time Axient Analog, to take this very high frequency diverse product and bring it into the digital realm so that it was also useful here in the United States.
So real quick, common misconceptions here. Brandon, when we say digital, do we mean we're using 2.4 gigahertz or?
It's still in the UHF band, but instead of transmitting audio waves, we're transmitting ones and zeros. So we're still using the same UHF beachfront property that's best for propagating audio, but what we're sending is information as opposed to actual audio. And that's the big difference of when you're sending digital. So the way that it's received at the antennas, instead of having to choose between, can now sum information. There's a whole bunch more math that can take place in the digital side that makes the connection of the wireless much more robust.
And that's really why you tune into Geer Talk.
Talking gear.
For the math.
Math.
I think we found our tagline, for the math. Exactly, right. So with Axient Digital, we still get all of the benefits of the UHF spectrum. Of course, there's a lot less UHF spectrum than there used to be. If we go back 15 or so years, right, we had over 300 megahertz, 330-ish megahertz.
Plenty of choices.
Right, lots of, and we have to, as wireless microphone users, coexist with the broadcast TV community. Now, if you're in a region like we are here in Greater LA, Greater Orange County, there is a lot of broadcast TV, but the good point is we know exactly where they transmit, because KNBC is always going to be Channel 4 here in the Southland. But as the UHF band has become constricted over time through a couple of FCC auctions, we have less and less airwaves for all of us to use. Essentially, our freeway is going from 8 lanes to 3 or 4 lanes. Same amount of broadcast TV, so we are all getting condensed closer together.
Same amount of traffic, same amount of pressure on the road, just less available space to put the traffic.
So the upside now is with Axient Digital, we have moved to a wideband system. The receiver and all transmitters are full, what's remaining, UHF band devices. As opposed to, in the old days, you would buy some G1, some H4, some L-band, and you'd have to mix and match, keep track of which transmitters could sync to which receivers.
When you're in LA, when you're in Texas, when you're in New York, you had to have completely different wireless rigs to meet the needs of those cities and those RF environments. You had to carry a lot of extra equipment just to sort of be able to get down the road. Going to a single wideband called G57 allows you to take the same equipment anywhere up and down North America.
So Brandon, with that, let's get into some specific transmitter differences. What do you have versus what do I have?
Awesome. I am talking to you on an AD1, which is on my hip, but I'll show you this one. It's standard belt pack. Can use the SB900 battery. In fact, all of the AD line can use the SB900 rechargeable battery, which is an excellent investment. I know that some of you have been burned by rechargeable batteries in the past. You go to pull that junk drawer open and find your old rechargeable battery and it's dead. That's not this. They've put a lot of time and energy into acquiring technology that keeps these batteries very, very robust. And it just means over the lifetime, instead of buying a bunch of 35-cent AA batteries, you end up paying for the unit. But back to the transmitter. The AD line is like you would expect UHFR to be, except it's digital. So you're going to pick a frequency after you've done a scan, and you're going to sync it up, and then you're going to leave it on that frequency for the duration of the show, unless you have a problem. I'm also listening on P10R, and I think you're talking to me on ADX, right, Ross?
I'm talking to you on an ADX one, yes. But for comparison, you might have noticed the P10R, the AD1, the ULXD1, the QLXD1, a lot of different Shure devices. Justin, let's take a look at Brandon. Share this same chassis.
Factor, yeah.
Meaning they both can use AA batteries or the SB900A.
They all fit into these docking sleds, things like that.
But Axient Digital AD transmitters, one-way streets, right? RF goes from the transmitter to the receiver, as you've always known and loved it.
Correct. And an ADX is going to be a little more exciting than that because we're going to introduce two more pieces of hardware that are going to make it flexible. You're going to need a spectrum manager, an AXT600, which is going to sort of constantly be scanning and looking at the environment around you. And you're going to need one of these, which is a little Zigbee radio transmitter receive unit, little transceiver. And this is the quarterback that's going to actually keep your microphone and your receiver in sync when you need to make a jump. You're singing the national anthem and an aircraft is approaching and they're transmitting on some frequency that may be close to yours, and the spectrum manager can see some approaching interference and says, I'm going to get you out of this area and put you in a safer area because I know what's safe because I've been constantly scanning. This is the device that's going to talk to the second radio inside of an ADX or an Axient
So Justin, can we take a look at this ADX1M?
Yep.
So I've got my normal UHF broadcast happening on what you normally see as the antenna, and there's a tiny little receive for the 2.4 broadcast. So the control information from my ShowLink AD610 can manipulate all settings on my ADX transmitter, including the frequency it is broadcasting on. And if this transmitter form factor is not to your liking, we also have the ADX1M. And then I will have a shameless plug for my contact info. As a reference for size here, let's put this up against a normal business card, which for all of you at home can zoom in and find my cell phone and email. So very small, very compact, rounded edges, internal antenna versus external. ADX1M really for those talent who want the most discreet possible transmitter, or if you're in the theater world and you've got to hide this in your costume, you've got to roll around, we got all kinds of different use cases where an ADX1M is the answer. And when it comes to a handheld transmitter, we have a normal ADX2, well, it's an ADX, so it can be remotely controlled by the ShowLink transmitter. And then we have what we call an ADX2FD, or frequency diverse. Now this is going to broadcast on two UHF frequencies simultaneously. Same audio content, independent RF carriers. So if I do need to change out a frequency, the second or the redundant frequency stays on air and you do not hear any drop in audio.
That's your national anthem at the Super Bowl mic. Mission critical, where cost is not an object. You're going to get the highest power transmitter on two frequencies going to two separate channels on a digital receiver. You, as an A1, can confidently look at whoever your producer is and say, we will hear every note.
Okay, so you know what? This brings us to our second brand new segment. See, we're just going leaps and bounds ahead of where we've been. This is what we're going to call, where's my note card? Brandon, prove it. Let's do it.
Prove it, let's do it.
It's a 1-2 punch. So I have an ADX1 that I'm broadcasting on right now. Justin, let's take a look at my instance of Wireless Workbench. We're going to dive deep into the software in a second, but just for now, you can see in my monitor tab, I'm broadcasting on frequency 518.7. We are about to fire up a transmitter, an analog transmitter outside of the Axion digital ecosystem that is going to directly interfere with 518.7, and we're going to watch the autopilot nature of a spectrum manager identifying interference, choosing a clean frequency, sending that information to the show link transmitter, and simultaneously jumping the transmit and the receive channel to a clean frequency. Are we ready? Production team.
Prove it.
Prove it. Let's do it. 3, 2, 1, go. And now we should be on a new frequency, and you can see that here in Workbench. I'm now on 583.450.
And we didn't hear anything because conveniently there was a small break in your dialogue at that moment.
Exactly. So while, if you're on a single ADX transmitter, while a new frequency is being deployed, you're going to experience about a 400 or 500 millisecond drop in audio. That is the equivalent of what an RF hit would have been anyways. Now, the system is only going to adjust when the interference is strong enough that you're going to experience a dropout regardless. So you got about a little less than half a second. Now, if that happens in a break in your speech pattern, great.
You never hear it, right?
Or if you've got a redundant system, either 2 packs paired to 1 lab or the frequency diverse handheld, then you never hear anything.
Right.
Okay, Brandon, let's get to the receivers, because we do have a couple of differences between a dual channel receiver and a quad.
Yep. So I have a quad sitting in front of me here, and you can kind of see what the back of the unit looks like. We've taken a screen print of what the rear is about, and Axion Digital is available in 2 flavors. There is a dual receive unit and there is a quad receive unit. The dual receive unit is going to be, as it sounds, 2 channels. It will not support quadversity, and we'll get to that in a moment. But it is a 96K device. It's a wideband G57. It's everything that the other receiver is, sans that one thing of quadversity. As you're going across, you can see that there's 120 volt AC input on this particular unit, and then a cascade voltage unit on the next to it. If you're doing remote work, or if you're on some kind of a parade float, or you're giving Hollywood tour buses on some scale that is unknown yet, then you might want to look into the DC input option. You can order these units with both 120 volt, and instead of the redundancy of being able to cascade, it's going to give you a 12 volt input, so you've got the ability to connect to a battery. Right next to that is a 4-port switch / Dante. So you can either set this up as a 4-port switch that is basically plug anyone into anyone and you're good to go, or you set it up as a primary and a redundant Dante and a primary and redundant network with 2 of these ports having PoE.
Now, we should say our friends at Audinate do like separating your Dante audio traffic from any control or other network traffic happening. That's why we offer the split redundant mode if you want to isolate Dante audio versus the control, which is basically communication, a wireless workbench.
Right.
The control ports can also provide PoE to your show link transmitter.
Mm-hmm. The outputs are all XLR, so it can be your normal just 3-pin audio connector. It can also be a 3-pin AES connection. In addition to the Dante, all digital audio coming out of the unit is at 96K. Now, where you get into some of the differences is at the very end there. This unit is a quad, so we've got 4 antenna locations, and it's labeled AB and then Cascade, or AB and CD.
Now, with the dual unit, you will still have 4, but they will only be AB input and AB Cascade output. Brandon, what do we get on a quad?
On the quad, you're going to be able to select it into quadversity mode, and a little light's going to come on that's basically going to say, I'm ignoring this as a cascade port, and I've created 2 more independent connections to the radio tuners. So instead of having an A and a B, you can add A, B, C, and D. 4 points of connection.
Now, you might want to do that for, let's say, 2 different zones. Maybe you need field coverage, but you also need some coverage down the tunnel, or the press box, or a green room. In our case, let's go to our second instance of prove it, let's do it. Let's test quadversity. So we've got 2 half-wave antennas that we're primarily using. Those are our A and B inputs. And let's switch and let's take this show on the road.
On the road.
Okay. So I can still hear because I've got my in-ear monitoring, but at some point here I'm going to cut out, say hi to our production team. Hi Kyle, hi Justin. Our C and D inputs are being run out here to a couple of paddle antennas, UA874s. This is the Audio Gear executive team. Owner-operator Alan Geer, Director of Sales Mike Cromer. We're going to go for a bike ride.
The parking lot guy.
As soon as traffic clears up. So we're going to check our distance here. Yep.
Quadversity is going to extend your range because, again, you're sending ones and zeros instead of analog carriers. So if just a little bit of information can come from A and a little bit of information can come from C, and it sums the information together, you are going to get some pretty continuous audio.
Okay, and I'm off. Brandon, I can't hear you, so sorry if I interrupted you. But just to be clear, we're using a 40 milliwatt transmit strength on my ADX1M. You can see the office fading in the background. We are going to very quickly, we're probably at about 800 or 900 feet of range at this point. And coming up to our cross rate here, we're actually about 1,000 feet right now. And this parking lot is going to represent about 1,200. Let's keep going just up here to the taco shop. We're going to get to about 1,500, 1,600 feet of range. We're going to stop right about here. In case you want to verify this, you can Google Map Audio Gear to Fiesta Grill. Shout out to our local taco shop. It's our range, and you know what?
Well, he as he turned the corner there, I guess we got something get in the way of one of our antennas. He'll pop back in here in a moment, I'm sure. Point being is that you don't often want to be 1,500 feet away from your antenna, but what we're showing is that the power of Axion Digital and the digital filters and the technology they've put into the receivers has really allowed range to become not the problem that it once was. You're not going to typically try to power through distances like this. You're going to want to coordinate and be more finesse. You have more finesse, but definitely this is a great example of if your lead singer runs off the front edge of the stage and starts running towards front of house and then runs past the exit of the venue, you're probably still okay. No issues there. One of the new things on Axion Digital that they brought about with this is a concept called the quality meter. We used to look at audio quality and we used to look at RF quality. And sometimes you could have full RF, but the quality of the audio was really, really low. Or what looked like a lot of audio was actually a whole lot of noise or interference. So they've taken those two metrics and put them into a new metric called the quality meter. And the quality meter you'll find on the front of my receiver or on the channel. It's a series of white dots that come right up against the channel name. Whereas you're seeing the RF strength with the yellow lines up to the blue dots, and then audio strength is the actual green input that you see raising and lowering. The quality meter is going to be a much more truthful indication of the quality of your audio. So as you're watching that quality meter drop, and he's at 1,500 feet, 1,600 feet, whatever, as long as you're at about 2 of the solid 5 available quality meter lights, you're good to go, and you can send your talent out on stage. If you've fallen below that, you may want to look and see if an antenna's come unhooked or something else has changed dynamically that has taken away that ability. But for the most part, the quality meter is going to be the confidence that you need to be able to send somebody out or to say that you're good to go. You just can't see the audio, you can't see the digital information in the air, so you have to have something that tells you the quality of your audio performance. How was it, Ross?
It was breezy. It was beautiful. It was fall. It's fall in Southern California.
It is.
Highly recommend it. Awesome. Well, I hope that worked because I don't know. Thumbs up.
You did, yeah. You got all the way down. We lost you as you turned around coming back from the donut shop. We lost you somewhere in the 1,600 foot range out there.
Cool.
But everything shy of that, we heard you just great. And
all right, so let's transition. So that's a lot of wireless hardware. Something's got to plug into these body pack transmitters. So let's get into our Twinplex and DuraPlex.
It's waterproof.
DuraPlex. It's waterproof.
It is, in fact, waterproof.
I don't
Sam,
think I've seen
are you there? Can you hear us?
I can. How you guys doing?
We're doing good, Sam. Let's talk about Twinplex a little bit. Can you tell us when was this product in development? How long was it tested? When was it released?
Yeah, absolutely. So Twinplex has been out on the market for about 1.5 years now, give or take, just over. It was officially released in April of 2019, but it was in development for about 7 years prior to that. In true Shure fashion, we wanted to make sure if we were going to step into this market and bring a sub-miniature lav that we released something that really was high quality, was up to our standards. So we spent about 7 years in development, and the last 2 or so of those years was really field testing. So before anybody knew what this was or knew that it was out there, you were hearing it on some of the biggest sporting events, some of the most well-known late night shows, thoroughly going through testing with professionals at the highest levels. And then we took that feedback, what do you like, what don't you like, to really make it a high quality miniature lavalier that was up to our standards, frankly.
Very cool. And those are high standards at Shure.
We like to think so anyway.
Military, right? We still build things with military precision
Absolutely.
as a part of our early partnership with the U.S. government.
Absolutely.
And then we also have our other guest here, right? I don't see her on my screen, but I'm assuming she's still around. There she is. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
Excellent. Jen, this question is for you. What is the twin? What or who is the twin in Twinplex?
Okay. Well, the twin of the Twinplex refers to actually this brand new capsule situation that we have with Twinplex. So it's actually a dual diaphragm, and the two diaphragms are located next to each other, so they're side firing. So it's a single capsule, single element, but two diaphragms. So it actually creates double the surface area as you would have for a normal, typical diaphragm, single diaphragm situation. And it sounds like a much larger diaphragm. It's really cool.
What are you talking to us on right now? I noticed you're wearing a headset right now.
Yeah, so I have a DuraPlex headset on right now. I think you mentioned there's probably some Twinplex somewhere.
Yeah, so we should clarify. Ross, Brandon, Twinplex, Jenn, DuraPlex, Sam?
Twinplex.
Twinplex.
Excellent.
Sam, moving down from the capsule, can you talk to us about the cable?
Absolutely. There's some really interesting technology going on in the cable. So of those 7 years or so spent in development, part of the team for a good 6 years was working on the cable. When you have a lav that's out in the field, it's on talent who has no financial interest in it, or it gets ripped off, it breaks. More often than not, the cable's going to be your failure point. So we really wanted to do what we could to minimize that as much as possible. So the cable is something that we've actually borrowed from the medical industry, and it is there's a spiral reinforcement that's running the entire length of the cable. So the whole length of this thing from connector to element has this reinforcement running, and that serves not only to strengthen it, but it also acts as a secondary ground. So when this is getting bent, pulled on, stretched, whatever, you basically have to break this cable in the same spot twice before you stop losing, or before you start losing audio. But that also makes it incredibly strong. So as part of our testing and evaluation, basically what we did is we tie this thing into a knot. You hang a weight down here, and we have our affectionately named flex spot that then sits there and does this over and over and over again until we stopped passing audio through these cables. And what we found in our testing is that on average, you could get about 100,000 plus flexes out of this Plex cable. And that's more than 100 times what you would find in any other type of cable on the market right now.
Wow, so we're not talking about some incremental improvement over existing lavalier cables. This is a light years ahead jump. That's 100,000 flexes at a single point.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
I was thinking of the MX150 as you were going through that and thinking that the Kevlar wrapped cord was a big innovation at the time. But this sounds like something completely new. This sounds like something even in excess of Kevlar, which is great.
Yeah, indeed it is.
Jen, I got another one for you.
Sure.
What are our connector options? So not everyone is going to always be using a Shure transmitter.
Though they should.
Yeah, there are some folks that are still learning. But in the meantime, like, what are the different connectors that we can put on the end of these microphones?
Yeah, absolutely. So TA4F is the standard Shure connector that y'all know and love. The other thing that is very common is the 3-pin LEMO. And by the way, you can get Axient Digital and ULXD in 3-pin LEMO, so you can still go with a different connector type and stay within the Shure transmitter line. Additionally, we have microdot. That's pretty popular in the theater space, but that gives you a little bit more flexibility. And then, of course, you can get that unterminated. So, if you're going to something else, you can re-terminate it in that way as well.
Excellent, excellent.
Awesome. Sam, take us home. We've talked about microphone, cable, connector, but we've really been focusing, Brandon and I are wearing the TL47. What other Twinplex mics are there, and do they fit certain markets or applications?
Absolutely. So we have a few different ones to choose from. Like you said, the three of us are all on the TL47, and that's kind of our workhorse. That's the one that we see most often. Another version we have is the TL48. Unlike this one that has this nice small element housing and a cap that comes off, it's a little bit taller, a little bit wider, and it has a permanently fixed housing. But that also has a permanent presence peak in it, and that was designed with film and TV in mind. Something that needs to, say, hide underneath the shirt, underneath the jacket, where you don't want to see it on camera, but then you need to compensate for that frequency loss a little bit. Going the other direction, we have a TL46. That is your high gain microphone. So that's going to be something that we would expect to see somewhere like theater, when you need to put it in a wig, hide it up here, maybe hide it back as an ear mic, somewhere that's less than ideal, you need a little bit more gain out of it. That's going to be the TL46.
Hold on, Sam. I think we have a live demonstration of a theater
Excellent.
application with the Twinplex microphone.
Hoping we would.
Justin, can we take a look at Brandon? How do we...
If you get it just right, you can kind of hide it anywhere in your wig and you'd be good, including animal wigs. I don't know if you can see my old man Roscoe here with his gray wig in, but any of these devices you can tuck and hide up inside of any of these wigs at any time.
This is what we affectionately call weekend Brandon. So if you're ever on a support call and you need some weekend after hours, this is the Brandon you're going to interact with.
Why have real hair when you can have all hair?
Okay, Sam, I'm sorry. I interrupted. I think we've got one left.
That's all right. We do indeed. And then finally, we have the TL45. And the TL45 is, the main difference there is just a thinner cable. So when you have talent who really doesn't want to feel the mic, again, if it's going maybe into a theater application where it needs to be hidden in a costume and look pretty seamless, this cable that you see in front of me on the TL47, the 46 and the 48 is all 1.6 millimeters. For the TL45, that comes in a 1.1 millimeter.
Wow. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go to Jenn with a presentation on DuraPlex.
It's waterproof.
DuraPlex.
It is, in fact, waterproof.
It's waterproof.
You do a lot of public bathing.
Well, I try to err on the side of more rather than less, despite the venue, Jenn, tell us a little bit more about our brand new, so we're 24 hours into DuraPlex.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Yep, super new, super new. So we're really excited about this one. Twinplex is amazing, and now we have even more to offer you for those folks who are being super environmental with the kind of work that they're doing.
Uh-oh. Do we have a connection issue with Jenn?
Hey, Jenn, we have a couple of Zoom audio issues. I think by environmental we mean open to environmental hazards, rain, the elements, things of that nature. Sounds like we got you.
Indeed. So. All right, excellent. So what I wanted to go through is, we talk about waterproof, but I really wanted to dig into that IP rating that this particular Lavin headset have. So it's IP57 rated, which, when we talk about waterproof, that is IP7 rating. So that means up to 1 meter depth submerged in water. But the other thing I wanted to call out as well is that 5 part, and that is a dust rating. So if you're doing stuff outdoors, we talk about like dune buggies, driving through the desert, like wind, all of the things. So it also prevents ingress of dust as well into the element. So this is a really robust piece that if you're going to be dealing with environmental factors.
Cool.
Now let's talk Sorry, go ahead.
Just say that it seems like that's an important thing that we might overlook too easily, in that if there's particles or things physically blocking the ability for audio path, then you're not going to have a very high quality microphone. So making sure you're keeping the extra out seems like a priority that at least I personally hadn't thought of before.
Yep.
So it's a good idea.
Exactly. So, so let's dig into the capsule a little bit. The capsule is nice and small. You can see it on my headset. It's a 5mm omnidirectional, very discreet, nice gain before feedback, and it has a really nice natural sound. We call out film, broadcast, speech, theater. It's really good for all kinds of different performance applications. And then it also includes a presence cap, and that's that little cap that you see in the picture. Presence cap, as you already heard a little bit with Twinplex. If you want a little bit more of that diction, a little bit more of the high gain, good thing to add if you're kind of hiding under clothes, that sort of thing. So that is included with all models. And it has great RF immunity, which is something that is needed for digital wireless to keep away from interference.
I was just thinking, if you're miking outside of a mask, the presence cap isn't going to make it more, it's not going to make the words clearer, but it might make the timing and beginning and ending of consonants and things like that more understandable if you had that little tiny push.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, it certainly helps. That's what we hear with diction is those high frequencies. So for sure. So this slide is just a picture of the cable technology, and Sam did a great job going into all of the work that came into this SurePlex cable. It was created for Twinplex, but it's so awesome. It's also in DuraPlex. And you can see some pictures here, actually, of that double helix spiral situation that we have going on in the cable. So can't stress enough. I mean, when you're seeing
I see what you did there, Jen. Can't stress enough.
I know, right?
Nicely done. That is a seasoned live stream professional.
Something like that. So you can see what's going on with the cable. We have that cable in the DuraPlex. It's the 1.6mm version. If we're going to make something that's IP rating, you got to make sure that cable is super robust to withstand all of the crazy, backflips, running through the field situation that you're going to throw at the sky. Now let's talk about models. We have a few different variations, a few different colors available: black, cocoa, tan, white. It is available with both the TQG connector for our standard Shure connector, as well as the 3-pin LEMO. And then the headset, which is what I'm wearing right now. And I will say the headset is kind of amazing, actually. I adore the Twinplex headset. I think y'all have heard me rave about that and how lightweight it is. This is a little bit stiffer. It's a little bit bigger and a thicker frame headset-wise than the Twinplex. But what I like about it is I feel like I could literally do cartwheels in this thing. Like it's there and it's going to stay,
Take it to your capoeira class or something. You're flipping around.
Go. So that's available in black, cocoa, and tan, as well as with the TQG and the 3-pin LEMO connector. Here's a little picture of some of our accessories that we have. So we have windscreens, tie clips, foam sticky mounts. I think the sticky mount is something that I think most of you saw with the Twinplex line. This is really great if you're hiding stuff. You just slide that lav in and it's protected on all sides, and then you hide it underneath clothes, so it's really great. And then it's, of course, comes with pouches to keep all of your stuff nice and neat and together. Which begs the question, obviously. So we have two really premium lavalier headset situations happening right now. What do I choose, right? Kind of depends on what you're trying to do. Audio quality, that dual diaphragm, that nice big, full frequency sound, that's your Twinplex. DuraPlex sounds great. It does have a great natural full sound, but it doesn't have as much oomph as the Twinplex does. Waterproof, you never know if you're going to fall into a pool. Okay, that's where you're going in with your DuraPlex. Now, I will say that the hydrophobic coating that is on the Twinplex caps is actually kind of great. So we've seen a lot of use with the Twinplex where, we just had a motion picture guy do he's like, there was a shower scene and it held up great. For things like that, that's perfect for the Twinplex. But if you're going to fall in a pool, that's when you're going to grab for your DuraPlex.
Or have your kids pour a bucket of water on your head, or
something like
water
that.
Balloons.
I got to say, if you don't know. And then as far as what you're getting, there's a little less flexibility as far as what the line options are. So as we talked about with Twinplex, we have more, you have your microdot. It's, easy to re-terminate. So there's things to be considerate of there. And then there's also way more accessories with the Twinplex line as well. So, you can go either way. They both sound great, and I will stress that. But, if it kind of depends on what you're trying to do.
It might be Broadway versus high school performing arts or something like that, depending on budgets and use cases and how people are going to beat them up, all those things.
And certainly, yeah. I mean, the DuraPlex does come in at a lower price point than the Twinplex does. So that obviously can be a factor as well. And again, it sounds really great, very natural, full frequency. So there's no reason to feel bad about using it. It sounds good. So
yeah, you sound great to us. I think that, conference calling and Zoom codecs are probably not the best way to evaluate a microphone, but I'm excited to try putting it on a pastor somewhere and see what we can do at a church or some other live environment.
And should you want to see what some of these things sound like in your environment, Brandon and I are not just your Gear
Talking Gear
hosts. We can come out in the field. This is all equipment that is here at Audio Gear, Axient Digital, Twinplex, DuraPlex. So please let us know if this is of interest to you to hear in your space, to do a scan, to do some coordination work. We're here to help. And when it comes to price points, thank you for mentioning that, Jen. We are also happy to help facilitate any purchase you might need through our Southern California and Southern Nevada resellers.
We do arrive on the tandem bike, though. That's just
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a new mode of transportation. We're going to need the little trailer, not for kids, but for hardware and or Roscoe.
Yeah, those empty nesters that drive around with their dogs in the back will just,
That does limit our range of scanning to the distance of that electronic bicycle. Sam, Jen, thank you for the overview. Will you guys help us get into our discussion of wireless workbench with a lightning round?
Let's do it.
Okay, so some of these questions were in rehearsal, to be fair, but some of these are not.
Oh,
So-
good.
to be interesting.
Yeah, why not, right? Okay, so here's one we tried in rehearsal that I'm not sure we knew the answer to, but we're going to try it again. Sam and Jen, when was wireless workbench in its current form, communicating with network Shure devices, introduced?
In its current form, like wireless workbench 6?
With the ability to communicate with a networked Shure device. Dead air, guys.
Dead air.
Oh, I think Jen's Zoom froze.
Uh-oh.
You get a
Do you hear
lifeline
me,
from...
or do you not hear me?
No,
We hear you now.
fine.
We hear you
He's
now.
trying to cover for you.
All right, so I don't know what's up with my internet today. Sorry about that. My clarification question is if you were talking about in its current form with wireless workbench 6, or if you were talking connecting with Gear in general. I don't have a date on it, but connecting with Gear in general, that came out with the UHF, not UHFR, UHF, is when that came out. I don't know what the date on that is. I should have probably asked somebody.
Bottom line, we've been in the coordination software game for 10 plus years. You know what? Let's backtrack. Let's start with something. Let's start with the softball. Hold on.
Yeah.
How much does it cost?
Free.
Free. Sam, on the
Know that
board.
one. All right.
Yep.
Where do I download this free software?
Shure.com/software.
Excellent.
Wow, Sam, you're on a roll. Can I use wireless workbench on a Mac OS?
Of course.
Do I have to suffer through, possibly, does it also work on Windows?
Yes, it does.
if you need to.
Yeah.
Some editorial comment, licensing allowed there. Well, we're going to stay out of the Windows PC debate from
Best
here on
that
out.
you do.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Can I update the firmware of my Axient Digital hardware from Wireless Workbench?
You cannot.
No.
You need a totally different application to do that, but it does exist. That is the Shure update utility. Make sure you have that.
Also found on shure.com/software.
In alphabetical order, what Shure products are available inside of Wireless Workbench?
Oh my gosh,
Can
you
I
guys
just
are
say
hilarious.
all of them?
We're going to take all of them. All of them count.
In
The point-
alphabetical
Axient
order.
Digital.
So
And
it
Axient
starts with an A.
Digital.
So
BLX.
Wait, Axient Analog, Axient Digital, right?
BLX.
Oh my God, all of them.
all of them.
GLX. No.
Does it have a network port on it?
Then it connects to Workbench. There we go.
How about this one? Can I use Wireless Workbench to change the frequency band of my wireless receiver? I bought it in one band, I wanted it another.
That's a tricky one.
In a new band? Or
A new frequency band.
A new frequency band. Okay, so only if you have Axient Digital. Because the Axient Digital receiver actually is totally wideband tuning and has all of the bands built in. You cannot change your transmitter band, though.
Right.
Important distinction there. Cannot change your transmitter band. How about, so we just went through a 600 megahertz auction. What happens if you own, let's say, a ULXD system in L50, which encompasses a large portion of 600 megahertz that is no longer licensed for wireless microphone use?
You can band limit it in Workbench. So it only operates in those frequencies that are still legal to use.
Band limit is such a nicer word than band saw. I had heard it called band saw.
Bandsaw is just catchy.
Ah, okay. We'll stick with that. We're in sales. Can multiple PCs, this is for both of you, can multiple PCs with Wireless Workbench running connect to the same group of hardware?
Sure,
Yep.
sure. But be sure you communicate with your friend because last in wins. So,
Awesome. Thanks, guys. You know what? We totally forgot to keep score on Lightning Round. So, you know, we're all millennials here, so it's just participation trophies for everybody.
Everyone wins.
Everybody wins.
I want my ribbon.
It's on back order. Okay. Let's dive in to okay, so this brings us to our practical, how do you use this stuff? Let's see it in action. Let's talk about the actual software, how you use it, how you get yourself from plugging in your hardware to a coordination plan and using your system. Guys, can we see my screen? Awesome.
So Ross has brought up the most recent version of Workbench here, and we're going to kind of talk our way through a basic setup and deployment. And the first thing you're going to notice is that all of the items that we've got plugged in and networked here in our office are showing up as online devices. This is the easiest way. If you had a rack already built, you show up and you plug it in, this is the quick and easy. It's also possible that you may need to be setting up offline devices, things that don't exist either in that moment or you don't know what they are until you get there. It could be other products that are not Shure products. It could be Shure products that are not network-based. And you need to input a bunch of information. So Ross, why don't you talk us through what you're looking at here?
Yeah, so I just went up to add new device, top left-hand corner, and I'm scrolling through, like we mentioned, every possible Shure device. I'm going to add some older equipment, some things that are not themselves maybe directly available in Wireless Workbench. And I'm going to say, hey, I've got 10 channels of ULX analog wireless in the J1 band. Maybe I also have some AKG wireless. Let's just throw a couple of channels in here. I have no clue what this band is. We're just going to see what happens. In this way, you can build a complete inventory list of network Shure devices and any offline equipment you might have.
So the inventory is going to be kind of your just big pile of equipment that's been organized by type or by manufacturer. And we're going to have to now make a decision as to how do we want to frequency coordinate. So right there in the center, there's another tab. You kind of, like a book, go left to right. And you're going to want to say, what exactly do I want to coordinate? Well, we're looking at an empty space at the moment because we have no scan data. We've got no local zip code data for television stations. We've got no online transmitters showing any information. So the first thing is we want to bring all that stuff to the surface.
So first, I'm going to come over here in the bottom right-hand corner and under Spectrum, Brandon mentioned TV channels. Again, our primary source of interference here is the DTV broadcast, folks. I'm going to search my zip code here in 92648, and this is going to itemize for me everyone who is registered with the FCC because they are broadcasting at a certain strength. They got to register with the FCC. We pull from that database, and we can import that information here into Workbench. From there, I can select, I've got a spectrum manager, which under my scan sources in the top left-hand side, I've selected, and I'm going to scan. Now this is going to do that full wideband sweep through everything that the spectrum manager can scan. I'm going to narrow my window a little bit so we can focus up on the UHF band, which is where we are going to coordinate for this Axion Digital hardware. But Brandon, talk us through what we're seeing.
So the Axion AXT600 is got multiple radios in it, so you're seeing it actually scan from multiple bits. Instead of trying to go the full spectrum and then the full spectrum again for an A and a B, it's broken it up into these little sections, and it's going to do all of the little sections at once A, and you're just seeing it start now doing all the little sections B. You can notice there's threshold lines that you see as far as what is being accepted above and below the noise floor there, and anything that's razor sharp and really, really spiky, that's probably one of the frequencies we're transmitting on right now. It's either Ross's pack, my pack, the in-air system, could be Sam on the other end of the building there. But you can tell a television station, the main reason why we keep track of those television stations is they're so powerful. The power that they broadcast, we were excited to get 40 milliwatts to go down to the donut shop on the back of a bicycle. 40 milliwatts is child's play to these very, very large television broadcast stations. So in the game of getting signal to noise to have a functional wireless, you really don't want to be where the party's at. You want to go to as quiet of an area as possible to get your devices up and running online.
So now that I have the scan data, it's important to note this is a snapshot of this moment of time in this location. If I was trying to coordinate a plan for my wireless that was going to be a theater run that's, every evening, curtain goes up at 7 p.m., there might be sources of interference that are not on air right now in the morning that would be on later in the day. So a snapshot scan is great, and it's what Workbench is going to use to map out that coordination plan. If you want to be extra sure that see what we did?
Gotcha.
That you've got all possible sources of interference, you can come up here to the top under frequency plot. And this is going to allow us to continuously scan our airwaves over time. I could do the same thing here. I could select a channel, I could tell it to scan, and this will repeat the scan process until I hit stop. And then I can scroll back in time and see when certain sources of interference occur. These broadcast TV stations, not everyone is on air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Many of them are on weeknights, evening news, weekends, house of worship services, local public access. Your local city council, every first meeting of the month might be broadcast on a Friday evening. This is going to help you catch all of those sources of interference, register the peaks, and use that to import into your coordination space.
If you're doing any large production, broadcast, festival, anything that you actually could do this scanning a full day in advance, it'll be of great service to you. You'll have real information for that spot in space, on the Earth. All of the other things that we have available to us are either predictions or they are just mathematics that have been given to the FCC and spit back out to us. But as we all know, the physics and reality of the real world can often be very different. Buildings can be reflecting. You can have a boat show in town you didn't know about. There could be, you name it, that could be causing you problems. This is the only way to know what those problems are and exactly where they are so that you can avoid them on show day.
So once I have my scan data, I have now imported my frequency list. So under add frequencies, I say select frequencies from inventory. I can add them all in, or I can select manually which frequencies I want to coordinate today. In my case, I just had them all populate. And then I can hit calculate. And what Workbench is going to do is essentially run through thousands and thousands of permutations of possible combinations of putting all of these wireless channels on air in the cleanest possible spaces of the spectrum that each wireless system can tune into. As you can see right off the bat, the ULX in the J1, now that's an analog system with a relatively narrow tuning band with about 36 megahertz. Given that limitation, Workbench is saying with this interference layout, I can only find 5 clean channels for you to operate on. Now there are, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, basically green means good, right? And red means bad. Can you zoom in to like 440 through 600 or something so we can see a little bit clearer how this is sliced and diced, not on top of any television channels, but entirely around them? Right at the top, your expand zoom.
Yeah, my bookends are not dynamic at the moment. Live TV, folks.
Yeah.
So under normal circumstances, and I don't want to close and reopen, or maybe I will, if Brandon, you can vamp. But we can narrow in, and what you see here is the G57 band. That's the UHF band. We're looking at this very wide window because that's what the Spectrum Manager could tune into. Checking out what Verizon's doing up here in 700 megahertz for
It's LTE.
Yeah.
You'll see, as we do many of these scans, so as Shure employees and as RF techs and all that, you start to collect scans as you go to different cities, different venues, different times a year. You collect these scans and you start to build yourself a database. So you could stack many of these scans on top of each other to try to cover all potential interferences and go from there. But even with the best of planning, you may get to an event where you're going through and there's a tiny little bump. And you go, it wasn't RF, it wasn't audio. I'm sitting right here, the receiver looks good, qualimeter's looking good. How do you justify or explain to somebody that what they heard was not an audio drop, it was something else? There's a really cool feature, a really powerful feature inside of Workbench called Timeline. And Timeline, if we bring it up here, is basically the proof. It's going to monitor every single aspect of the transmitter and the receivers, and you can see how it breaks down how he's in quadversity, so we're seeing the 4 antennas, we're seeing the connection to the 4 antennas, we're seeing our audio ability, we're seeing the 2-wave Zigbee radio connection, and we're seeing his battery life. So as we go along and we say, look, that wasn't an RF drop, there physically wasn't audio in that moment, somebody wasn't talking that should have been talking, or there was a hit. Is the hit coming from an instrument or is it coming from the lead mic that's on stage? You now can go through your monitor and you can find where was the problem or interference. And this thing just kind of records in real time. You can save these files. You can save every show that you ever do to show somebody that you've never had an RF drop. It is pretty impressive to be able to go back in time and dissect every part and piece of it to know if and where the problem located. Where was it?
Also from the monitor tab, we're looking at my channel right now. And so we see everything you can see from the front panel, we can see here. Of course, I can also get into the properties of this channel, and any change to the settings that I would be able to do from the front of the receiver, I can do in the software as well. These are live in real time. I could adjust settings on the receiver, and since I'm on an ADX transmitter, my show link will change that information in real time as well on my transmitter. So very powerful tool, and like Jen mentioned, if there are 2 people simultaneously making adjustments, you can both be flicking the light switch on and off in different parts of the house. So look out there.
It's great for walk tests, like when you're setting a system up and you want to go walk and stand where your talent's going to be. You want to go walk and stand where they might go out into the crowd at this particular point, or you actually go out and physically can tell that it's working well. And you can even turn on the Axient digital transmitters that got a tone generator, so you don't find those gaps in between words by walking around going test, test, check, what, test, test. You can actually play a tone, see the tone, and then anytime the tone is interrupted, if you hear it, and then you come back to your timeline and you have the ability to see it.
So, Brandon, we got just a couple minutes left. Justin, how are we doing on questions? Do we have anything we want to mention?
We're all good for now.
It sounds like Mike Cromer has been meeting all of your question and comment needs in the YouTube chat. Thank you, Mike. Jen, with just a couple minutes remaining, is there anything absolutely critical we have not mentioned with Wireless Workbench that we, let's be honest, should have?
I don't know. I think probably the other thing that I like to point out that people don't realize that they can do is how adjustable the views are. Because you can create multiple monitor views. You can change what you're seeing in the channel strip. Those are saved with your show file. So, as you're working, you can really make that interface to be what exactly that you want to see.
Right, so you're seeing me here. I'm creating a new monitor workspace. If you want something dedicated to your most important channel on air, which in the case of Gear Talk, oh, Brandon.
Talking Gear.
There
Oh,
you
sorry,
go.
Talking Gear.
Thank you from the Peanut Gallery. Yes, this monitor space, very customizable, can follow you as the individual RF coordinator into what kind of makes sense to your taste. Couple other things we want to mention before we sign off for today. Training opportunities. So this was, let's be honest, a pretty quick overview. Lots of different resources out there in the Shure world. We do have the Shure Audio Institute, which is an online learning platform. There is an RF certification course, series of video tutorials, some short quizzes, really kind of dives into the concepts of RF, some of the hardware, the software, best practices. We've also got shure.com/webinar for lots of archived content. Please sign up for the Shure Pro Tech Talks, which are happening, Sam, Jen, regularity every Tuesday?
First and third Tuesdays of the month.
Awesome. First and third Tuesdays of the month. We hope to be back in front of you in a classroom setting to do our masterclass series. Hopefully more on that as soon as the rest of the world starts doing those sorts of things. Brandon, anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to add that there is a very extensive and high-quality training for wireless workbench. It's available on YouTube. It's available at the Shure Audio Institute. And what's great about it is they've broken it into segments. So if you need a particular feature, you remember how to use 60% of it, and you get to a feature that you really need, there is really, really in-depth and I say high quality. You can see the front of the equipment. The instructor is very precise, and they get things down to 2 and 3 minute windows by feature. And if you just kind of while setting up your gig and you need to get things together, let it run on the side of you, everything you need to know is available right there as a part of that YouTube.
Okay, guys, so we're coming up on an hour. I do want to mention Brandon, employee of the Lakers, after Gear Talk Episode 1, wins the title. Dodgers, currently in the World Series. No Gear Talk host currently employed by the Dodgers in any way.
LA?
Dodgers, hit me up.
LA.
LA. Big thank yous to the crew, Kyle Gish, Justin Geer, just off camera. They're purposely not panning the camera over to themselves. Mike Cromer's been answering your questions. Alan Geer's been driving the tandem bike. Thank you, Sam and Jen from Shure, for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. We'll be back in 2 weeks talking to you from Gear Talk.
Talking Gear. It's waterproof.
With a new co-host. We're giving Brandon a break. So we're going to leave the mystery unveiling of our not substitute, like a pitching rotation. Yeah, we're just cycling through audio gear, guys, here. Thanks, everybody.